I'm with Jimmy Lakey.
Second hour of the broadcast. Don't forget, Republican convention continues. Coverage at 6 o'clock tonight on 600 KCOL. If you want to listen to the Fox News radio feed, that starts at 6 o'clock tonight. And we'll talk about it throughout the course of the morning. Also, how's your homeschool experience going on? I heard from Bonnie in the previous hour, and she's a nurse and going to be working the night shift so she can homeschool her special needs Down syndrome kid during the day, and no help from the Poudre School District. Unfortunately, sad situation that Bonnie's in. Keep her in your thoughts. I'm telling you. Steve Laffey joins us every week at this time, and Steve Laffey knows about school and homeschool. And I don't know if you. Well, first of all, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Jimmy, I'm great, and the lady who just called in about homeschooling, sort of it wants to break your heart. My mom worked 11 to 7 a.m. shift as a nurse, and with 5 children. And my father went and found back when the public schools were worth going to. My father drove around, Cranston, Rhode Island, rather than Warwick, because there's a better school system, and just to find a better school system for the kid, for the kids. And then we went to Rhodes Elementary because he found a school on the street, and here's a lady, how many years later, who's having to deal with the massive incompetence of the public schools, combined with, she even mentioned one of the things that people all know. When they closed the schools, Jimmy, the kids went home and learned nothing. We know for a fact in some statistics around the country where 25% of the kids who were supposed to be doing school virtually right away last March, April, May, no one knew where they were. They never signed in. And if you add in the other kids who signed in sometimes, you have half of the school children, at least in the major cities of America, who learned nothing last spring. And you have a whole system today where I've met people now all over Fort Collins who are going to homeschooling in different ways. Charter schools, Colorado Early College here. Hopefully, I'm sure that everybody's to the max. Where my I have 6 kids. My second and third kids went. Of course, we now strictly homeschool through Veritas and a Christian organization, and I did it personally when Sarah came down with cancer for a couple of years. So it's very heartbreaking to see. What's mystifying to me is the inability of people to rise up and say, tax us no more for this piece of junk that you call education. We don't want the $15,000 a student to $12,000 a student to $17,000 a student. We can do it for $4,000 online. We need all the schools to be sold off and be run by people like Steve Laffey, and have different schools where people can choose and are free to choose, to quote Milton Friedman, their kids' education. None of that's happening. And the Department of Education, run by Betsy DeVos, should be instructing everybody to do this so we can say, we know the emperor has no clothes, we've seen it, and this is what we're doing about it, rather than struggling it.
The voice of Steve Laffey. Steve, I had the news story here. Poudre rushes in, spends $7 million on technology, computers, and Chromebooks. And then you got a mom who, I thought it was law that they had to accommodate kids with special needs and give them some kind of accommodation. But you got a kid who has Down syndrome, and they're basically saying, sit down in front of the computer like everyone else. John Caldera has the same story. He's published this in the newspaper recently. That the Boulder School District's just kind of boring the special needs. I thought at the very least that was illegal. I thought they were supposed to provide special accommodation for those people with special needs, but evidently to Poudre and Boulder schools, it doesn't really matter. Everybody sit down in front of your computer and pay attention.
It is a law in just about, I think, every state. It was a law in Cranston, Rhode Island in 1979. I was the president of the student council, and my principal, we put all special needs students into the classrooms, brothers and sisters, the people I went to school with. My best friend's Nikki Perry's brother Peter came into school, and the principal, we worked with these kids, made them, both members of the basketball team, and took them places, and the senior yearbook has them all included in Christmas parties, kids with Down syndrome, all kinds of special needs. And it is a law, and again, this shows the ghastly disregard by the people who run the public schools in America, that they don't care about John Caldera's kid. They don't care about any of the kids, and they especially don't care about the special needs kids. Now, this is not exactly all of the teachers. I'm talking about the people who run the union, who are on TV, who are striking in Arizona, who are striking in parts of in Chicago. These are the people that need to be fired. If you look at all the statistics, you won't find any budgets where they said, you know what, we don't need any administrators. We actually need to hire some computer geeks like Steve Laffey's son, Peter. We're going to bring him out of California, guys who know computer science. My son's a Columbia University computer science grad. There are people like that. That's what they need. They didn't hire any of those. They just sent people computers with your tax money. And we all know about 80% of those computers will be misused, won't be used. The people don't know how to use them. The whole thing stretches the imagination, and it gets back to this one thing. Where are the parents? Why aren't they in a protest mode? We see what's happening up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is the victory path for the president if it continues. But and we can talk about that in a second. But on this education thing, why are people putting up with it? What's wrong with people? If you're listening, don't put up with it. Flood this place. There should have been a 50% layoff of all the administrators of all the public schools in America. In America. Not just here. In America, Jimmy. If you look at how many guidance counselors are there, who needs a guidance counselor? How many of these people have been added rather than teachers with degrees to teach specific stuff all across the country? Why aren't the national Republicans bringing this up? Because it's a winning issue, especially among what we call the soccer mom, because she, like the lady who called in, is out of her mind. She wasn't prepared, and I'm not saying she should have been prepared. People should have been prepared to have money the last 10 years after the last crash, but they weren't prepared to teach kids, nor should they really have been, and we need to do something vastly different in this country before we lose the whole shooting match, because our kids, not my kids, but collectively, our kids are the people who are protesting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, right? Or in Portland, Oregon. Those are the kids of the public school system. There's the face of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I do want to talk about Kenosha here, but it is interesting that the Poudre School District, for instance, front page of the paper, $7 million of new technology. It seems as if maybe not all of it. Some of that. Why do you need $7 million? Are there other things that you're not doing right now because the kids aren't in school, and you could have peeled some of that money away? Maybe staffing that you don't need right now. In other words, did they really? Is this $7 million additional? What else have they cut? It seems as if maybe that $7 million might have been able to be reached by cutting some other things because the schools aren't doing everything that they were budgeted to do right now.
Yes, and back to special needs kids. Think of the heartbreak. And people who are listening who may have never, dealt with this the way I didn't deal with directly with my children but my friends' children, and like Mrs. Perry who had to stay home for Peter, and I could go through a litany of things that I grew up with, and all the time we spent, even as we got older, taking care indirectly, directly, even as mayor, right, with this one kid, Peter Perry, who lived in a group home, and going over there and working with Jimmy O'Connor and going over to where the special needs kids were and so forth. The heartbreak. Because these special needs kids, they need so much more time. They're the kids who wander off. They're the kids who really can burn themselves. They need a lot more attention. And the thought process that at the very beginning when this happened, that wasn't thought about, and not being thought about today, is a disgrace. It's a disgrace of such a magnitude that you would think it would get everybody riled up so badly that things would finally change at the public schools. But they're not. They're going to get through this whole thing, and people like brain dead are going to send them back there, and the whole thing strikes me as just pure evil run by the unions across the country, and how they handle this. And the real sad thing is how people are putting up with it. Don't put up with it. Right now, don't put up with it. Get on the phone. Get your kids. If there was a 50% reduction next fall in public school attendance, they would finally get the message. And someone would actually run for office locally. All the Republicans running locally should run on at least separating out the tax bill. Because I'll tell you one thing, and this is what I wish I had been able to do as mayor. I wasn't because of state law. But if the tax bill went out separately just for schools all throughout Colorado, and then just for other stuff, then people would riot. Because more than half the people don't have they'd be paying a tax bill, they'd receive directly. I don't have my kids in public school. I'm 75 years old. I'm single. I'm this. I'm that. Then they would finally riot and things would change. That's the key trick across the country of keeping those tax bills attached to your city so you don't notice the pain and the disgrace of what's going on in public schools.
Steve Laffey is my guest. His website is stevelaffey.com. Steve Laffey, LAFFEY.com. Steve, I've talked about these Kenosha riots. I've heard many analysts, and I can't find any way to refute it, that if these riots in Kenosha continue, and you've seen the polling data change in Minneapolis as well, in Minnesota, I hate to say it, but this is not good for Joe Biden. This is a pathway to victory for the president. I mean, he's going to be competitive in Wisconsin in a way that I think few people thought he would be, and same with Minnesota, because this is absolutely ridiculous. These Democrat governors, Democrat mayors are not stopping these rioting and looting. And last night in Kenosha, 2 people killed on rioters.
Yeah, Jimmy, and just think of the commercials that, I mean, I wish I was just helping the president right now, but so go back to Kenosha. Kenosha, if anybody ever looks at the town, has 3,000 people, and last night 2 people were killed after the Democratic governor called in the National Guard. Now, just saying these statistics, the Democratic governor did call in the National Guard. Nowhere near enough people. See, the Democratic people who run their states and their cities, like the governor of Colorado here, a total disgrace. Disgraceful to watch nationwide. Friends all over the country call me and say, Denver? Riots every night? I'm like, yeah. This is what Jared Polis is all about. This is what Mr. Hancock is all about. And strikingly, by the way, as an aside, where is Cory Gardner with a commercial last night of him drinking beer and announcing that Governor Hickenlooper is a friendly guy and ran a brew pub on a commercial where he speaks, Jimmy, and then is sipping beer during the commercial about how he's the guy who knows how to get things done rather than drink beer or something. Where is the commercial? Here's the commercial. It's a commercial, dark in bed, right? Husband and wife, and they hear this shooting, and the wife said, "What is that? What is that?" And the husband says, "Oh, that's the Democratic conventions. They're holding them locally." And she says, "What do you mean?" "Well, they have these riots where people come. Those are Democratic conventions, honey." "What?" She's like, "What? I didn't think I could vote for Bush. I didn't think I could vote for Trump." Think of a commercial that's that exacting, where it plays in Wisconsin tonight. It's a dark room. They turn on the light. The guy goes and says, "I better get my gun." Right? There's a shop owner. Do another one. There's a shop owner's wife. And just picture the commercial. The wife says, "Where are you going tonight, honey?" "I'm going out to defend the store." And she goes, "What? What do you mean? You locked it? You put a locked it up?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got to get my shotgun. I got to go out and defend the store." The Democrats are having their convention in Kenosha tonight. Right? Wouldn't that be effective? And about 3 months ago, I said the president really couldn't win, and really, I really believe that because of all these other things that we're not talking about today. And he's still doing these things that are just ultimately bizarre as far as destroying the country financially. But no Republicans except me and Mark Sanford care about the financial situation. We're the only 2 left. Mark Sanford, myself, only 2 left. I get it. But to get to victory, let's just talk analytically again. To get to victory, the contrast we talked about a couple of weeks has to become so stark. I just gave you 2 commercials that I think, off the top of my head, which I think would be extremely effective to run in states where he can win, like Western Pennsylvania, right now in Pittsburgh, right? They could be even drawn toward like cities, run them locally, change the name. Where you going to, just name a city outside of Pittsburgh, right? And in Ohio, and just keep running them and running them and running them, where people realize that, here's the stark contrast. The governor of Wisconsin actually calls in the National Guard. 125 people instead of 3,000, right? Instead of putting them in front of every store, he calls in 125 and 2 people are killed. And I don't know what really happened. We won't know for a while. But it may very well be simply because a shop owner had to kill people who were looting. Jimmy. Did I cut out? I'm here. All right.
19 and brought it home to Colorado. Get tested right now if you have any symptoms at all, or get tested 7 days after you think you're exposed. If you went to Sturgis, go get tested. The state of Colorado is paying for that ad on my news feed, and I'm wondering why haven't they posted up any ads that says, if you've been rioting like with the Democrats.
We cut out. We're coming back in.
Steve Laffey's back. His phone popped and disconnected. Steve, welcome back into the show, sir. I like your advertising campaign. I said after you left, it's like the guy, the old commercial, I'm going to make the donut. I'm going to protect the store. I think it worked.
And I think, and I'm sorry, you know, in 5.5 years, we've never had a cutout with me or you. It's weird. I've heard it. It's happened. But so just make it so stark and make it one issue, because that's Jimmy. I'd be emphatic about this. It's the only way to victory. The other stuff he's done, the people who are upset about the finances and this and that. I mean, the thing about China, even now, they say they're growing at 1%, they're destroying us. We've done nothing about that. We got like 8 weeks. Forget it now, okay, for the campaign, right? But they just need to forget it and just go on this one topic of the Democrats are the riot. They are the property destruction. They are the people who failed you in the public schools. They are the people who want to take all of your money. They're the people who will take your guns. By the way, here's another commercial, Jimmy. We're the commercial guys. You just show a commercial of Belarus rioting, right, and being put down. You show Hong Kong, the riots are putting down. You show this in rural areas, like on Facebook stuff, and you say, what do Hong Kong, Belarus, and you name some other country, Venezuela. Show the scenes in Venezuela. What do they have in common with Democrats? They don't want you to have guns. That's what's in common. Imagine if we lifted in Belarus 3 million handguns with ammunition. Just let them drop the Glocks, because you see the commercial with Glocks. They don't fire. They're perfect. You can drop them from planes, right? You see this? I own Glocks, so it's my one I don't think they make them in America. I don't even care, because Glocks are the best. But anyway, you drop them from planes. Imagine that would be another commercial, again, specifically for swing places in rural areas. Because if he doesn't get the vote out, he has to run because Corey Gardner's going to lose and all these people are going to lose, and Corey Gardner's going to run a happy commercial. All right, love you, buddy. And those are the commercials. This is not to say what a great guy Jimmy Lakey. If you're in locally, by the way, I've signed up. I guess I got a hole for his golf tournament next week, and that is the stark contrast that we need in America, because it's not happening where you are today, generally speaking. But if Democrats run everything, it'll just keep happening. It'll just keep happening over and over. To think that there's a Democratic governor of Wisconsin who doesn't know how to put down riots before they happen in a town of 3,000 people shows you the massive incapacity to run anything by the Democratic leaders, the Democratic Party, which is not true of all Republicans on a civil way. It's true of almost all Republicans on finances, which is a whole other subject we didn't discuss today. Anyway, I gotta get back to work. We'll talk soon.